I'd like to welcome everybody to the Universal Light Expo and to our talk today. My name is Erica Lent, and I'm the Creative Operations Officer at Untitled Chapter. So I believe I've met some of you down in our booth this weekend. If not, I'll look forward to talking to you later today. I'm really excited to be here. I actually live in Phoenix and work with Diana, so it's a treat for us to be together and really just to be with her. So we appreciate you being here. If you don't know Diana, she's really wonderful person. She's got nearly 3 decades of experience in risk management, feng shui. We really spend months researching the energy for next year. We take a lot of different schools of thought, and what she's going to talk to you about today is the energy for next year from a feng shui perspective. So, very proud to introduce Diana Garber, the international author, speaker, consultant, and feng shui expert.
I'd like to just set the tone for kind of my background and how feng shui comes into play. I have had 18 major surgeries, just as many minor surgeries. I've died twice. I've had 5 children, and I have 1 living child. So for me, feng shui saved my life. I'm literally a walking miracle. And so through a lot of health issues, I had researched a lot of alternative methods, but when I came across feng shui, and I've studied all the methods that are out there, but for me, classic feng shui is the most powerful method. And so it's all about numbers and elements and lions and tigers and bears, oh my! So before I went full-time doing feng shui, I was at Bank One, and there I was over all of their IT. So there were 65,000 workstations, 2,500 servers, and I was the business continuity and disaster recovery manager. So as part of that process, when the federal auditors would come in to evaluate if we had procedures in place, and more importantly, did they work, it's given me a lot of really good disciplines, which really, for me, translate to feng shui, because feng shui is all about risk management, and that's what my background's about. So that's why we are so diligent about taking a look at the energy and coming to the expo and trying to share with you what the risk factors are. And, you know, life is about risk. We chose to be here, and unfortunately, we learn more from pain than we do joy, so that's just part of our journey here, and I'm singing to the choir. But when we take a look at the energy and say, well, gee, you know, this is an unacceptable risk, what can I do about it? That's what I'm trying to offer to you today. I want to start off by kind of talking about period 8, and then 2010. How do they play or not play together? And then talk about personal energy, and I care very much about the global initiative, so I thought I'd maybe throw in some talk about the President and Mrs. Obama and how it applies to us personally. So this is kind of the outline. We'll have a period of question and answers, and then we'll conclude with sending you back out into the expo with some abundant thoughts. So. Period 8, when it comes to construction buildings, energy goes in 20-year cycles. So I want to begin by talking about period 6. Period 6 was from 1964 to 1983. During that 20 years, which is represented by hard metal represents accumulation. So it was post-war, we were coming back and was living in the right houses and thinking about college funds and portfolios and so forth. When we transitioned to period 7, which was 1984 to 2003, period 7 represents soft metal. Soft metal is still about accumulation, but now we're starting to communicate more about it. Thus why the technology boom happened. But now we're in period 8. Period 8 goes from 2004 till 2023. Period 8 represents the mountain. So basically we've stopped and said, I got all this stuff, but does it make me happy? Is it ethical? Is it moral? What does it mean? So we're really in a period of questioning what's going on in the world. And for me, there's no coincidence that what's going on with the breakdown in the economy and global warming and all of that is coming to an accumulation, a culmination right now, and that we have all chosen to be here at this time. I really do believe that we chose to be here because it's such a pivotal time in history. And I think the people that come to the expo are light workers. And so we all have a role in helping to guide us to what's coming. Period 8 also represents youth. So there's no coincidence that our president is younger. When we started entering period 8, we were transitioning from the Korean president senior to the Korean president junior. We were transitioning from Bush senior to Bush junior. So it's very much about youth. Period 9 is female energy. So we're going to see more and more female leadership, which is pretty exciting. So everything in classic feng shui, and I want to make that distinction because most of what's published, most of what's popular, especially in the Americas, is the black sect or the Western feng shui that says, here's your front door and that's your relationship area and your wealth area kind of thing. And I'm an Asian classic practitioner. So for us, everything is related to numbers and elements, the 5 elements specifically. So all of you, based on your birth date, you have a number, you have an element. That tells us volumes about you. And even when we concluded at the booth last night, there was a gentleman that was there. And when I said, oh, well, you're Mother Earth, and you've got these health vulnerabilities, and he was like, ooh, this is like really weird. And, you know, and this is who you are, and, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, how do you know that stuff? And see, that's what happens when we work with a client, and I'm going to have a client talk here as we conclude. People say, well, I mean, how do you know this stuff? My mother called you and told you to say, my husband called you before you came here to tell you to come in, you know. And it's like, no, it's the energy of the building you live or work in. And if anything, it's good confirmation. I shouldn't be telling you anything that you don't already know. It's just now you have a reason, and now you know what to do about it. So once we identify the problem, the risk, then we can choose what to do about it. So I find this very empowering. So let me set the tone with the 5 elements. The 5 elements are fire, earth, metal, water, wood. Everything relates to that. Fire is represented by the direction south, the number 9. Earth is broken down into 3 categories. 2 earth is represented by southwest. 5 represents the center. 8 is the northeast. Then we move to metal. Metal is represented by the number 6 and northwest. The number 7 by west. Water is only north and the number 1. Wood is 3 and east and 4 and southeast. Now, that doesn't mean a lot to you, but for us, everything relates down to formulas. So when I take a look at a building, and by the way, one of my recent clients gave me a revelation. She said, you know, I've practiced the black sect, the Western feng shui for a really long time, but that kind of comes from me personally, and through classic I realized that if the building's happy, I'm happy. If the building is no longer suffering, my life is going to be better. She said that's the huge distinction for me. So just very high level, if you want to read about classic feng shui, a really great book, believe it or not, is The Complete Idiot's Guide to Feng Shui. It is. It sets the tone, it gives you examples, and it's awesome. But what happens is when most people open up that book and get to all of the charts in the middle, they're like, okay. But when we take a look at a building, the basis is when it was born, the 20-year cycle that it's in. That tells us a lot. And so is it in a weakened state, or is it in a good state, or a coming state, a growing state? Also the compass directions all equate to elements and numbers. So basically what happens is whatever that number is, there's a formula that goes with that. And then the compass directions, there's a formula that goes with that. And when you cascade these, and when I was first doing this, I did it on transparencies, and I would take a look at it, but there's certain number combinations that when they show up, it can mean awesome things coming, good money, sudden money, or health, or intelligent, wild children, like the house that I did for the Parade of Homes. One of the great features about that was the children who live there will be honor. They'll bring honor to their family. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in a house like that kind of thing? So when these formulas happen, again, there are certain number combinations that come up. And it can mean anything from happy occasions, joyful marriage. If you're looking for a partner, maybe it'll happen that year. Or on the flip side, maybe there's divorce energy. Well, you can mitigate that. When you know about it, you can say, don't want it. Let's change it. Really, when I start to work with it, because of the health issues I've had, I'm always looking for health and safety factors. So when you get that 2 and 5 combination, 2 represents sickness, 5 represents catastrophe, that's usually cancer. Or if it's the 5-2 combination, that usually means loss of a loved one. And I'm going to have Temi talk because they've experienced some of this. So, so that kind of sets the tone for period 8. Now, then we transition to the year 2010. I'll try not to throw a lot of terms out there, but basically it comes down to stems and branches. Stems are the elements and branches are the animals. So 2010 is the year of the metal tiger. Now, tiger typically is associated by wood. So when you come back to the elements, it's an earth year, it's a number 8 year, but a metal tiger starts off with wood energy, but then it's a metal tiger. Well, wood and metal don't play well together. Metal cuts wood. So what that tells me in regards to the economy, they're saying right now that we're coming out of the recession kind of thing, but what the numbers tell me is that it's going to be slow. The first half of 2010, we still need to be conservative. We still need to be doing what we can to have some reserves and be thinking about that. The good news is, as we start to transition out of that energy, the second half of 2010, the economy start to come back. Woohoo! Yay! So be conservative, first half of the year. Now, the year of the tiger, when you think of the tiger in its natural element, okay, they stalk and prey and watch and explore, but the thing is, they kind of go from feast to famine. When they're hungry, they go out and they eat. But they don't have reserves. They eat it all. So you've got this feast to famine kind of thing. So look for the first half of the year as far as the economy to be just that. We'll have little peaks and little valleys. So it's kind of life anyway. But second half of the year is also we're going to see the real estate market start to come back. So if you're thinking about moving or selling your home, second half of the year is going to be better. So maybe hold off for that. What we do, as Erica said, it takes us months to come up with this type of analysis, and so we publish a newsletter, and the newsletter for November is going to be our moons, retrogrades, and eclipse articles. And if you're not familiar with Mercury retrograde, when that happens, computers break down, and cars break down, and transportation issues, and mail is slowed. So we actually have IT companies that when we come out with this article, they'll get it, and if they're having overseas projects, they try not to schedule them to start during a Mercury retrograde. So keep that in mind. And then December is going to be our Chinese astrology article, and January's newsletter and article will be in regards to the Feng Shui. So that's when we'll be bringing it all together. But there's so much information to try to digest it into a 45-minute discussion. It's near impossible, but I'm gonna do my best here. So we talked about real estate. So that's in regards to period 8 and then 2010. Then when we break this down to your personal energy, that'll be the next place we go. But what I want to do is give you some insight, because I want you to leave here today with something that you can apply in your home to help mitigate the energy that's coming. Because I talked about 20-year cycles, well, obviously annual cycles, because we're transitioning in 2009, which is a fire year. Well, this time last year, we were writing about 2009. And we said, fire year, fire energy, we're going to have unprecedented fires. What happened? We get a letter from Australia saying, we've got fires over here, when you coming over? And then the fires we had in California, again, unprecedented. So, I mean, it's never great that those things happen, but if we can plan for them, that's awesome. So when we take a look at period 8 and 2010, which is an 8 energy, it kind of translates down to if there's one of something, that's good.